Welcome to Nurse Talk with Martha
and Tessie.
We are making history
We're reforming nursing
and we're elevating our profession to the next level.
Welcome.
Thank you guys so much for joining us today for another episode. We're excited to talk about a topic that we hold true to our heart and very near because we think that this is one of the number one reasons why we are seeing like a downward turn in longevity in the nursing as a career.
Mhm.
And we do think that this topic can be one of the topics that if we all focus in on this
Mhm.
is one of the things that can help to change our
I
industry.
I agree.
And our topic today is a toxic work environment. Now,
Most of you know
right.
exactly where we're coming from.
When you're in a toxic work environment, that is an environment that is not conducive to the thriving of its employees. And if you think about toxic or a toxin when it's in the system, it destroys the system as a whole. So that's something major that we would like to change. Being a traveler, I can tell you about a time where that really just made me really think about a toxic work environment. I worked in a hospital that was at least 75 to 80% travelers. Now that raised a lot of questions in my mind when I saw that, because one of the number one things is having a high turnover. That is an indicator that your environment is toxic.
There's a problem.
And right, exactly. And I remember the tolerance level was so by leadership was so low that for any little thing they would start firing people without counseling, without any, because there are some, there's some states that you don't have to give a reason why you fire a person,
Right.
but it was
Right.
it was the smallest of things that they would just say, okay, you're out. And that raised a question, because that made me think, okay, the hospital is paying to train these nurses,
Right.
as they come in.
Exactly.
Even a full-time employee, because I've done a lot of traveling, but I've been a full-time employee as well. And that whole process of being interviewed, the high, background checks that costs money. Also, the orientation, absolutely. Then you come in and you have to have your training, and with nursing, you are paired up with another nurse, so you're training two nurses at a full-time rate. But and I was just like, how can the hospitals continue to put out money like this to train people, and then now you're firing people for no reason, and you're allowing your staff to have the backbiting and the gossiping and the just all those things that make up a toxic work environment. You're allowing that to continue, and and then you just continuing to
snowball.
And I'm like, wow, what is the budget looking like in a hospital? Like, do they have unlimited budgets like that now, where they just don't care? But Tessie, I know that one positive thing that I saw is when you were telling me about your experience as a manager, and some, the changes that you all were trying to make.
Yes, that's true. I was blessed to be a part of a community of leadership team at a facility where the goal, we were excited, like, because the goal was to create an environment where the nurses felt accepted, where they could grow more, and that they could all be just more of a cohesive environment in order to bring about this great change movement within the facility, because it was needed. Because when it came down to it, the turnover rate was really high, and it was due to a toxic environment.
Right, right,
So we learned about that, but it was so exciting to be a part of that process and see how that was going to go. And
right.
we know it wasn't going to happen overnight. Like
Mm-hmm.
everybody
Mm-hmm.
knows, it takes time. Change
Mm-hmm.
doesn't happen just at the drop of a hat.
Right,
So, but it was exciting to be a part of that, that movement, and
right,
see where it was going to go to hopefully, to decrease the turnover rate
right, right.
and bring back more of that loyalty. I think
Mm-hmm.
it was to gauge bringing back those standards,
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
know, but
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, I think, me personally, I think that just things that we can do just every day as
hmm
nurses
hmm
to decrease that chance of us having a toxic work environment is to be more accepting
yes,
of
yes,
each other.
because that was the example you gave, which I didn't know that made such a big had such a big impact on you on
Mm-hmm.
our other episode where you talked about just me accepting you
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
into my
Mm-hmm.
space and our environment.
Right.
I
Uh-huh.
mean, I know it makes a difference, but because you actually verbalized it,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
let me know, like, oh, okay. Which I know I can say I've seen where we've had travelers come in and some of the nurses don't receive
Right.
them the
Uh-huh.
way that they should, or show acceptance, show that kindness and things like that.
Right.
And that could cause turnover
Right.
and
Uh-huh.
a toxic environment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. And it's not just that, just a regular employee
Yes.
to be feel like you're a part
Part
of
of
a
the
team.
correct.
Because traveling, that's a
Correct.
whole different thing.
Right.
But to to
To
feel
feel.
like you are a part of
hmm
a team,
hmm
to feel like if the ship is going down,
Right.
that your pod mates, we talk about pods as
Yes.
NICU, but
Yes.
your pod mates, your fellow nurses,
hmm
wherever you work in the hospital, you feel like that person has your
Back.
back and you're working together as
hmm
a team,
hmm
and you don't want the thing about it is when you're in battle,
hmm
I always go back to that.
hmm
When you're in battle, you don't want the person that's next to you,
hmm
you
hmm
don't want them to be even afraid to help you
Yes.
or to afraid to come
Come
in
in. That's
and
true.
right and
Yes.
we can't fight
No.
battles alone.
Alone. We
We
cannot.
have to fight it
As a
as
team.
a team, as a
hmm
team,
hmm
because I feel like as a nurse, if my podmate or my fellow nurse, if she's going down,
I'm
I'm going down
I'm
with her.
going in with them.
Right, exactly,
I agree.
exactly,
I agree 100%.
and I think about like
Because it's not about us.
right,
It's about what's taking place at that time. It's about helping save that patient or whatever it is that's going on at that time. Dissolving conflict, whatever it is.
right,
We go
exactly,
in together and help each other out.
exactly.
hmm
That's just like when you go into a code
hmm
situation.
hmm
Everybody has a
Same
part to
concept.
play.
hmm
But what do we focus on? We focus on the number one thing, and that's saving that
Saving that
patient's
patient's
life.
life. Correct.
And that's how we have to be as nurses.
Nurses.
And how when we work together, we have to be, as we
hmm
say in our community, we have to be stand 10
10
toes
toes
down.
down. That's right.
And that means that we are, no matter what,
hmm
we have each other's back.
Yeah.
And we have to have each other's back in this profession,
hmm
because this is a profession that will never
Never
die.
die. Never.
And it is a profession that if we treat it right,
Yes.
if we start to work on things that don't
I
work,
agree. hmm
this is a profession that other people can
hmm
come into or choose this profession. And this is something that can provide stability for
Yes.
your family.
hmm
It's a career that, like I said, it's just like you're going to have your hospitals, you're going to have
hmm
your funeral
You
homes,
know.
you're going to always,
hmm
we don't know
Urgent care.
about all
You
of
have
that.
all
Those
those
are things, and you have to think about the person that is going to be taking care of
care
you
of you.
when you are sick,
Yes.
and the type of personality that you're going to want to
hmm
stand over you
Yes.
when you are having a medical problem.
hmm
The disrespect, the gossip,
Yes.
all of those things, those are not things that need to be anywhere in our environment. Because if you can think about our environment and what we do, is something very sacred.
Yes.
We were created to do this job.
Yes.
And if you don't think if it's like me, I would never wanted to be a nurse.
Right.
But it chose me. So evidently I had some characteristics that
Right.
would fit into this profession. So even if I think about the name Florence Nightingale, when you think about that name has respect.
Yes.
There's honor behind that name. There is something that's so sacred about when you are gifted a life to take care of.
Yep.
There's a great responsibility. And that's something that we all have to remember, because we know that we all have battle scars.
Yes.
We know that the load is heavy, but we have been entrusted to do something that's so sacred. And that is, we have been gifted this profession, and we have to get back to remembering why we became a nurse. Because that's one thing you have to go back and ask yourself.
Yes.
Why did you become a nurse? Did you think that it was going to be you're going to make a lot of money? Did you think it was going to be you're going to be able to take care of people? What was your reasoning behind becoming a nurse? And that's something that we need to always check ourselves every time we go into the hospital. We have to remember. And then, okay, you became a nurse, but what about your sister that's right beside you, or your brother that's right beside you in this profession? What about them? Really, we're each other's responsibility. Yeah, we have to uplift each other. Because nobody goes into a battle alone to try to fight the enemy. You have to go in together, because there's strength in numbers. And that's something that we have to remember.
I love that.
That's something we have to remember. Well, Tessie, we can talk about this subject all day long. Because this is something I'm very passionate about, and I believe that this is one thing that can just change our whole entire industry, especially concerning longevity in this profession. So we're excited. We know that there's a way more parts to this, and we're going to be exploring them in some future episodes.
All right. Thank you all for joining us again today. Remember to listen, like, share, and subscribe.
And we'll see you on the next episode.